Welcome. You're listening to the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast, a podcast production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. Thanks for joining us. And welcome to another edition of the Dr. Ashley and the Boss podcast. In studio with me is, of course, Dr. Ashley Ackerman.
Good
How
morning.
are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. And I always forget to, I was listening to some podcasts in the past, and I always forget to say, I just say the boss, and people ask, what's your real name, though?
Oh, yeah.
So I should probably say, I am David Ross. I am the executive director here at the Mental Health and Recovery Board.
That's good. Yeah.
We are super excited, Dr. Ashley, because in studio with us is none other than...
Drum roll, please.
That was my drum roll.
It's really good.
Candace Ressler.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you
Welcome.
for having me again.
Absolutely. And Candace is a veteran. She's been on the program before. But Dr. Ashley, you weren't with me. You had left me alone, as you do sometimes, and I was fending as best I could, but Candace carried the episode.
I'm sorry I missed that. Yeah, but we get to do it today.
We do. And we're super excited because Candace, we'll get to know Candace a little bit and some of the work she's doing over at Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. But also, she's involved with a art exhibit that's coming up, and we're real excited for our listeners to know about that because we want them to attend and have a good time and learn something. And then I think towards the end, we want to also talk about this whole idea of art therapy in the future. I think it has quite a bit of utility, and I think it's going to grow more than it already is. So without further ado, Candace, for our listening audience who maybe were derelict and did not listen to your first episode or didn't attend the RSVP conference where Candace had an opportunity to present, maybe tell folks a little bit about yourself, where you work, and a little bit about your education history, just to get them grounded on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I am Candace. Thank you for the great intro. I work at Appleseed Community Mental Health Center on Rocky Lane. I have been working there for about 3 years,
Wow.
Almost 3 years in June.
Nice.
Whoa, that's
Flying.
crazy. That just was a recollection. So I've been working there for 3 years. I do counseling and art therapy there. A little background, I went to Kent State, Stark, for my undergrad for psychology and minored in fine arts. And then I went to Ashland College for my graduate program, which is a dual enrolled program for counseling and art therapy.
Right.
And so I am now a licensed professional clinical counselor, and I am working towards my art therapist, my board certification for art therapy. Right now I'm just a registered art therapist, so
Great.
I'm hoping to pass that test in July.
That's exciting.
It
Great.
is exciting. And we learned that Ursuline probably has the preeminent program in Ohio for art therapy. We learned that at the RSVP conference because one of your professors in the past was our keynote.
Yes.
So we learned a lot.
Yeah, Ursuline is, I think, the only one in Ohio. There's a couple in PA, and it's really a great program that does the dual program of counseling and art therapy. So
Yeah, that's great.
really cool.
Very exciting. And then, a lot of our audience probably doesn't know about art therapy being an offering at Appleseed or at any of our partner agencies. So, when folks come in, do they just ask for it, or is it something that gets recommended to them by maybe somebody at intake or something?
Yeah, so I think, 3 years ago, it was just kind of like whoever got me kind of got the art therapy type thing, and if they didn't want it, that's fine. But I think now it is something that is being offered more with our intake specialist. She, says, oh, you like arts, you're creative, maybe this could be something that you, and then they get connected with me. In the future, I really hope that, people do have more knowledge about the art therapy that's offered at Appleseed, and they specifically would be like, I do get a couple here and there that are like, I want the art therapy because they heard from word of mouth or from another person. So,
well, in my view, my hope is that you get so busy that they have to hire another one because people find it so valuable.
Yes.
And one of the things I learned from you last time was that art therapy can be done in a group. It doesn't have to be just in individual sessions. So maybe talk a little bit about how that would work.
Yeah, so I started very individually based just because it was, art therapy wasn't really known. So I started more as an individual based, kind of just growing the program. And then now, after I got back from my maternity leave last March, I really dove into group work. And so I've been doing and running some groups for 10 to 15-year-olds, 10 to 15-ish year olds, and then 15 to 17-year-olds, and then now adults as well. So that group specifically is more based towards like coping skills and using art as a tool to be able to cope and work through some things. And there are some other groups coming up that are going to be more expression based, which I'm really excited for.
Right.
Actually, I have a group coming up in June for clients that have kind of gone through the art group and want to paint, and it's a really fun thing. But art as a tool is where I kind of start, and then I go from there as they get more knowledge on art therapy and use it more as like an exploration. The belief that art is a part of oneself, and they create and it emits some like unconscious, oh my gosh, that word's hard, unconscious part of themselves, so that they can uncover some things. I often work with people who have experienced big traumas, so it is a way that they can work through some of that trauma without necessarily having to face it head on. It gives it a little bit of a avenue to express
kind of
themselves.
indirect.
Yeah, an indirect way, so it's not so scary.
Interesting.
I
Now-
love that too. Sorry to interrupt you. So I'm a mom. I have a 10-year-old boy, and I was just thinking about like using that with teens especially. I can see that would be useful because a lot of times when they're busy with their hands, they can more freely or more comfortably talk. So I can see that would be really effective with that age group, you know?
Yeah. No. And that was, you kind of were going where I was going, which is one of the things I've learned is that just because somebody is what I would sometimes call doodling or,
Doodling,
that doesn't mean they're not paying attention. In fact, in meetings or even in trainings, oftentimes that is a way to help the person focus or learn or be engaged, where my initial thought was, though, oh, I must be boring them, or they're bored by what's going on. They're bored so much that they feel the need to doodle. So that's helped me because I just took it real personal, Candace, and I just assumed I was running a really poor meeting, so everybody was doodling.
You must have learned that from the RSVP conference, though, right?
I did, and I've held on to that close to my heart. But yeah, so I think that's interesting what you said, Dr. Ashley, especially our young people. I don't know if there's a relationship between so much time on devices and less time with human beings. If art as a way to express or to ground might be more and more popular with our younger folks, because let's face it, I think there are enough research that I'm convinced that there's not as much in-person verbal communication with our younger generation, so maybe they struggle to have a traditional talk therapy session.
Well, that too, and I don't know if there's any research on it, but I wonder if there's less creative things happening at home these days because there are more electronic things happening. So I'd be interested to know that, but I think that's great that you're doing that work.
Yeah, I did a SALT map. Do you know what that is?
A SALT map?
When I was in grade school. See? For the audience.
Assault or assault?
Assault.
SALT. So you mixed up salt and some other substances to create almost like a paste, almost like a clay. So it ended up being like a sculpture of like, could have been planets, could have been the states, but they were called salt maps.
What was yours of?
I think I did states.
Okay. That's very cool.
But yeah, so
I've not heard of that.
the
That's
whole
cool.
idea was that, again, this is just for folks that are over 50. We did a lot of that kind of stuff, but I don't know to what extent the schools have the young people go home and do more kind of those artsy, creative things.
Yeah, well, in my experience, my son's not coming home asking to do those things or like with assignments to do them. We do them because I love art, but I don't know how much that's happening organically, you know?
Yeah.
Very interesting. So again, that's not the only reason, Candace, but that's one reason why I think there's going to be an increased need for art therapy as a medium or as a venue, because I think our younger folks, the idea of them being comfortable verbally, and again, as somebody who used to see younger clients, they always struggled, right? Because it's always a strange environment to be in with a strange adult talking about things that maybe they're not even sure that they want to talk about or comfortable talking about. So I always tried to engage, and then, whether it was a bit of play therapy or something to get the conversation and the comfort level. So I just think with art, particularly for our young people, not exclusively, but particularly for our young people, it just might be that hook or that way to help get things going.
Yeah. I do a lot of when I do a lot of assessments, like structured artwork to start them off so that they're not so scared of a blank page. And then they go, a lot of the times there's just like this like general progression with clients, especially my teenagers who are like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. And then they'll get into it, and then I'll basically be like, okay, so what do you want to do today? And they'll be like, I want a watercolor. And then they just are watercoloring while they're talking about this stuff with me. It's really cool to see the progression of what am I supposed to be doing with this piece of paper versus, oh, today I'm going to do this. And then I just give them the supplies and we work through whatever comes up. That. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and she touched on something. Dr. Ashley, have you ever seen me create anything artistic?
Not traditionally artistic, but this room is one example. It was creative.
Yeah. So I guess my fear would be, the person that comes into your office and says, Candace, I'm not artsy. I can't do anything. How would you help maybe lower that anxiety of the person who doesn't think they're artsy at all? And I can barely do a stick figure.
I get this a lot. I get this so much, actually. A lot of people will come in and be like, well, I don't do, I'm not art, I'm not creative. And so I challenge them a little bit and say, yeah, I know, right? Challenge them a little bit, and I say, well, I kind of get them to tell me what they are creative in, whether it be, and I kind of mentioned this at the conference, but whether it be through your fashion, whether it be through cooking, whether it be through other things that they do, dance, yoga, sports even.
So you expand all the different ways somebody could be artistic, because they might be thinking classically like drawing or painting. I see. And
then I say, look, I kind of give my little rundown of what art therapy is, and I try to break it down because it's not like the traditional art classes. Like they go to class and they're being graded on a very subjective piece, and it's like, what? This is not that. It's more about the process of creating versus what they actually make. And so I give that to them, and I think it does take off some of the pressure of okay, if this turns out icky because I'm creating an icky emotion, that's okay. That's kind of the point. So I think that helps too, once I've kind of given that, ability to let go of whatever preconceived ideas they're creating. I still get a lot of clients that are like, oh, I just do not like this. It did not turn out the way they wanted. And oftentimes what I'll do if that happens is I'll have it saved in their folder, and then I'll bring it out the next session and we'll talk about it again. And then with new eyes, I feel like they see things differently, and it's interesting. I think too, it can be very telling, those people who get really caught up on things, like that perfectionistic tendencies. And so then we have something new to work on too, of all right, so where's this coming from? Why are we being so hard on ourselves with this piece that, isn't make or break? It's, so it's interesting, all of the avenues that art therapy can kind of open up to.
Yeah. Well, there is an event coming up I know we wanted to talk to our audience about, and you first told me about this, and I said, we have got to talk about this on the podcast because, I want the community, the broader Ashland County community, to be more familiar of art therapy, of course, but also ways that can happen that are outside going to a counseling session or going to a conference. So could you tell us a little bit about an upcoming art exhibit that I believe is going to be on the campus of Ashland University?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So this art exhibit is going to be called Seeds of Hope, a little spinoff of Appleseeds. So I've been working with Cynthia, who runs the gallery at Ashland University Coburn Gallery, and we collaborated to make a art show for clients' artwork. artwork.
Oh, wow.
So this is something that I've been really wanting to push because I've seen it work in other communities, and it's really empowering for clients to get to see their artwork up and to maybe share a little piece of themselves.
Okay.
So starting basically in February, I've started kind of getting clients to open up and think about the idea of sharing their art. So I've gotten a couple people's permission and reflections on the art. Actually, some of the art was shown at RSVP conference
Yes, we saw
at a
that.
table. So a little preview, if you will. And this is going to be for clients, and anyone may be associated with Appleseed. I'm kind of making it a little loose, so like if they're in the school liaison program or whatever it is. But anyone who wants to share art, they are able to make a submission. And I always kind of let them know that their name is not going to be associated to the art just because of HIPAA and confidentiality and wanting to protect them. But if they wanted to go and see their art and tell everyone that they created it, that is completely fine. It's whatever they're wanting, so they can have that space. But yeah, so I'm really excited about this. It's going to be running from October 10th. There's going to be an open night that night, a reception, I think, if you will. And I don't know the time frame of that, so I will work on those details, but I know they're finishing up on a lot of school stuff right now. But October 10th, and it's going to run from October 10th to November 10th. So really exciting stuff. Half of the art gallery is going to be Appleseed artwork, and then the other half is going to be Creative Expressions, I think is the title, and it's going to actually be artwork from art therapists. So they're asking
That's cool.
art therapists around the state of Ohio to submit their artwork. I think the deadline is July. But you can submit up to 2 artworks for any art therapist in the state of Ohio from the last 4 years. So that's also really
That's a
cool.
really cool concept. Yeah, like having both there. Like,
Right.
I'm really excited to go.
Right. I mean, so obviously the individuals that are producing the artwork and want to share that, but then also the art therapist from their lens. Like, I'll be interested to see what they come up with.
Me too.
So does it reflect them personally, or is it an expression of them working with folks? It would be interesting to see what kind of artwork.
I think there's going to be like a lot actually, because I feel like art therapists are innately creative. Like that's why they got into this work. And so I'm hoping to submit some artwork too. And I think one piece I'm going to do kind of more reflective of like my work that I do and how I've been working in this community for the last 3 years, and the other is going to be more personal because of like my own personal journey.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to get to see both parts. It'll be I'm excited to see I've been sharing it with all my art therapy friends, hoping that they submit.
And how those two things go together and how they don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing out
Yeah,
ideas. I like that.
I'm super excited now. I didn't know about that. That's
Well,
great.
we will, for our listeners, we always try to put as much of the details in the podcast description in terms of what Candace was mentioning about the dates, as well as how to access tickets or however they're going to do that. We'll have all that in the episode description. So if you're driving right now and you're listening, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You don't have to remember it. We'll provide that information for you. And we always have, information available on any of the things we talk about on the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast by calling the office at 419-281-3139. So you can ask for Dr. Ashley. And I might talk to you, but I am the boss, so I usually make you talk to Dr. Ashley.
Give me a call.
And she's
It'll be
much more
good.
pleasant.
That's true. I'm just kidding. I'm
Candace,
kidding.
you heard that.
Totally kidding.
I don't know what it means.
I'm wondering, a question that came
Yes.
up for me when you're talking though, what is the reception of like clients when you bring that up to them about like having art at this display? How
Yeah,
do they receive
so
that?
I have had, I've had two sides of the coin. I've had in my groups, they've been kind of baiting it, like, hey, there might be an art show coming up. What are you? And like almost everyone's like, oh, look at this piece that I made from this time, and they're sharing it, and they're really excited, and it's really cool to get to see that. And I also have some clients that I'm like, hey, our goal is to work past our social anxiety. Let's maybe make a goal for ourselves that in October maybe we're sharing something as like a way to work towards some healing past our anxiety too. So it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes.
Sure.
So, I always let the client lead, so I'm not going to push in any other way. But, like, giving them the opportunity to think about what their goals are and to
I love though that you're trying to make it anonymous and just trying to remove some of those anxiety barriers
Yeah.
that might be getting in the way just to help them. Because and again, I don't know if you're using this, but they may or may not realize that by someone else who comes to the exhibit who maybe nobody else knows that they're struggling with something and they see somebody else's piece, how that might be helpful to somebody else. I mean, it's hard for us to quantify that because so much of the healing that happens in this community, like other communities, is very unknown to most of the populace or certainly the professionals. Not everybody goes to an Appleseed or a Catholic Charities or a CADA, which are the contract partners of the board. A lot of healing and help takes place informally in things like this. And that's why I'm so excited that you're partnering with the college to do this, because folks that we don't even know about that might be struggling go to an event like this, find meaning in it. Maybe they're inspired themselves. Maybe, they start getting more involved with art therapy, or they open up and talk to somebody, maybe even there at the event, about what's going on for them. So that's why I get so excited, because there's always what we call, hopefully, the positive unintended consequences of these kinds of events that I just get jazzed about.
Yeah. I think there's like an empowering piece too for clients to be able to see their artwork and then have that also, if they're standing there and someone's like, oh, that's really cool. Like I would.
Right.
And if they read the reflection and then they like get to, communicate with someone else about, what
How many folks do you work with, Candace? And I know Ashley and I both work with folks in the past that maybe they don't get a whole lot of that positive feedback. They've had plenty of negative, but they don't always hear some of that praise or that positive feedback. And hearing that from a stranger, essentially, and they're just listening to that, I think that can be really helpful.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that in other, like I said, other communities in Akron and Worcester, where I've witnessed the interaction between clients and the viewers, and it isn't very. That's why I wanted to do this, because I know it can be very empowering and inspiring. And
well, and that leads me maybe to the last discussion area that I had on my mind, which is, Candace, your experience matters, and you've said some things, you've seen some things in other communities, and I appreciate you bringing some of those experiences to Ashland County, and again trying to make Ashland benefit in a similar way to those other cities that you've been in. So what do you see as the future of art therapy in Ashland County, just from your seat and your perspective? And you've got I think, a valuable perspective.
Yeah, so I have seen, art therapy kind of seep down, because Ursuline's up in Cleveland, so it kind of seeps down. Cleveland's got a lot of art therapists. But I'm really hoping and seeing that there's going to be more art therapy in the town of Ashland. I am hoping for myself, after I get board certified, that I can bring in some interns and provide some more groups that they can run and things like that. I could foresee us having a couple different providers, and I'm really hoping that, just with the changes too with licensure, art therapy is now going to be under the Ohio credentialing board, so it's going to be more available, and things are going to change within insurances and what they accept and stuff too. So I think that's going to only build art therapy, because it's now this scene type of treatment.
Yeah, one of the things that Ohio is really big on right now is peer support. And I thought about peer support in the area of art therapy, and I thought, how interesting would that be to have a younger person in particular working with other young people? Somebody, not that Candace is very young too, don't get me wrong, but having peers, that are similar age, working with, whether it's teenagers working with younger kids, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
I just
great.
think there could be some real advantages of that peer-to-peer approach when it comes to art therapy, but I don't know.
I had not thought of that. I really like that idea.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I hope you're correct, Candace. I think you are, that it is going to continue to grow. And as young people here in Ashland County hear this podcast and they go to the exhibit in October, the simplest way to make it grow is ask for it. So if you're engaging with your school community liaison at any of the Ashland County schools, which the board supports the school community liaison through the levy, which we appreciate so much from our community, ask for it. If you're at one of the agencies and you really want to try that because you know that that's a way you can express yourself maybe better than verbal, ask for it. As more and more folks, I think, Candace and Dr. Ashley, they ask for it, we as a board, as a funder, we try to respond to emerging needs, and we try to fund those things appropriately. So as the need and the demand grows up for services, we try to meet that. So I would just encourage the audience, and this goes for parents, grandparents, that maybe you've got a son, daughter, or grandson, granddaughter, and you've seen that in them, that, you can say to the therapist at intake, Johnny, Janie, they're super artistic, just so you know that, and yeah, I've seen them express themselves in this way or that way. So I say this to parents as well. Provide that information at intake. We don't know, and, sometimes when we're doing those assessments, unless we're told, information.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great. One of the things that we talked about recently too, with the board, is the 3 legs of the stool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we definitely see the value in creativity and using that for therapeutic purposes. There's something deeply human about suffering,
Mm-hmm.
right? We all go through hard times, but there's also something deeply human about creativity, and that they are connected, I think. Yeah. So this is great work, and I'm glad it's here in Ashland County. So thank you for doing that.
Thank
you. Well, we have been speaking with Candace Ressler. Candace works over at Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. Candace, we are so appreciative of your time this morning, and we are excited to see where the future takes us here in Ashland County and beyond, and for you, and for how you're developing and you're growing this service in Ashland County. Ashland County is better because of the work that you're doing here. So thank you so much.
Yes.
As I say, we've got the Seeds of Hope exhibit coming up October 10th through November 10th. Additional information will be in the podcast description. But any final words, Dr. Ashley or Candace, before we sign off today?
I just want to say thank you so much. You're doing such great work, and it's a pleasure to have you here. So
thanks. You guys are making me blush.
All right.
I appreciate it. Yep, it's been really fun.
Excellent. We will see you all next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Keeping Ashland Healthy podcast. The podcast is a production of the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Ashland County, Ohio. You can reach the board by calling 419-281-3139. Please remember that the board funds a local 24/7 crisis line through Appleseed Community Mental Health Center. It can be reached by calling 419-289-6111. That's 419-289-6111. Until next time, please join us in Keeping Ashland Healthy.